we were out in the boat the other day, and we had a bunch of water in our fuel. As you can see here, we pulled a bunch of this out of the fuel tank. You can see the separation there. Really nasty, bunch of water. I'm not sure how that is getting back into our fuel tank, but this is something that we need to mess with today. So we need to pump a lot of this out of the boat and get to some good clean fuel, so that way we can get rid of all that water. Now the first thing that we're going to need to do on this boat, normally you would jack the boat all the way back. So most boat fuel tanks, you would want the boat to be sitting like this because the pickups are in the back of the tank. But on this particular boat, since it's smaller boats might be a little bit different. The pickup is actually in the middle of the tank. So we do not want to tilt the boat back, we want to level the boat. So what we're going to do is we look down here at the bottom of the boat, and you can see it's tilted slightly back. So we're going to actually lower the trailer here, and we're going to lower the boat. I might probably have to move the truck a little bit, but I need to lower the boat down to make the bottom of the boat completely level, so that way the middle of the tank is level where the pickup is, so we can pull out as much water as possible. All right, that's actually pretty level right there. I think I'm going to be good with that. When it comes to getting the water out, the first thing we need to do is pull our water separator. And once we pull our water separator, what we're going to do is dump it out into a clear container like this, so we can check it and see what exactly it looks like. So as you can see, look what it's already done to our new water separator. We've already rusted the top out with this water. And now we're going to take our jar and we're going to dump our water in there. And I think we've actually got most of it out, actually, because you can see the big difference in this. Let me tilt the camera up so you can see it a little bit better. So you can see the distinct line of our good fuel and the water that's on the bottom. So we've got pretty much most of the water. We were able to get it out the other day, but in case this is all water, here's what you're going to do. In order to clean this the rest of the way out, I'm just dumping the rest of this water out here into our jar, or into our container. And again, depending on how much water you have will depend on how much of this you got to get out. But I'll put the water separator back onto the bracket, tighten that up, and then what we're going to do in order to pump this out, a couple different ways to start. If you don't have a lot of water, you can just do it manually with your primer bulb. We're just going to disconnect it here from the engine, and we're going to hold it like this down into our jar, and we're going to use our finger to press on this to prime it out. So we're going to hold our primer bulb straight up and down with the arrow pointing up. We're going to put our finger here, we're going to squeeze the primer bulb, put our finger on there, and let that prime up. And we're just going to do this repeatedly until we are able to get fuel to come out. This is basically hand priming it. Very, very simple. And what we're doing is we're pulling fuel from the tank in order to get that fuel up into that water separator. And since we just dumped it out, there's going to be a lot of air in that separator. Then once you get fuel up to it, we can pump that fuel into our jar, which, as you can see, is nothing but fuel, which means that we got all the water out of the tank, which I wasn't expecting there to be a ton of water in the tank because we pumped a lot of it out the other day. But now I'm going to take the water separator back off, and we're going to test it and see what it looks like. As you can see, just a little bit of water in there. So we've got pretty much all the water out of the fuel tank, which is good. Now we've got to dispose of all this fuel and all this water, which you can't just dump this on the ground because there's still a lot of fuel. It's a lot of dirt, nastiness. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that would, but we're not going to do that. Now, something else before we move on that I want to explain to you is right here, depending on how much water you have in your tank. So let's say that you have a 100-gallon tank and you've got 50 gallons of that is water. You do not want to be out here hand pumping all of that out, and so you're going to need a better way to get it out of the tank. Just like we did with taking this right here off, most fuel lines are going to be a 3/8 inch or a 5/16 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a fuel pump that we can use to pull the fuel out of the tank and just dump it into either 5-gallon buckets, or we need to get something bigger like a big jug. If you have the space, people will put them in 55-gallon drums, but a lot of people won't have that, so you're just going to have to fill 5-gallon buckets or totes like this, something to capture all of that fuel and then be able to transport it to somewhere to dispose of it. Now, in order to move more fuel, what we need to do is find an electric fuel pump, and we're just going to search on Amazon because we want the cheapest one possible. You don't want to spend a lot of money on this because you're going to be running water, fuel, nastiness through that pump. So we're just going to look for an electric fuel pump with 3/8 inlet and outlet things, unless you've got 5/16s, which there are a lot of those that do. But right here you've got one. Here is $24, and you can get it probably in the next day or something, depending on where you live, for Amazon. But that is what we're looking for. This is a 12 volt, 5 psi, 9 psi. Now, whenever you look at these fuel pumps, because there's going to be a ton of them, the main thing that you're also going to want to consider is going to be the amount or the volume that it puts out. So for this one, let's see, it doesn't really tell us as far as the flow. So I'm not sure why this one doesn't, but there's tons of these things. Obviously, you don't want to spend $62 even though you're going to get 140 gallons per hour, which is a big deal. So, I mean, if you're getting 140 gallons per hour, but this does not look like it comes with any fittings, you can see no fittings there. You'd have to buy MPT fittings. 140 gallons an hour, within an hour, you're going to pump out your fuel tank. Whereas some of these other ones, like, you know, this one here for $23, this is 35 gallons per hour. So if you've got to pump out 70 gallons, it's going to take you 2 hours to do it. But again, it's $24. These things are readily available, and you're just going to stick it right there on your hose that you disconnected from the engine, and you can do it before or after your primer bulb. I would probably do it before your primer bulb. Take your primer bulb out of the system, so that way it's going to make the process a lot smoother, and you're not going to run all that stuff through your primer bulb. It's just going to be better to not have the primer bulb in the system, because it's just, you don't want that. Then when it comes to getting rid of that fuel, you're just going to go wherever you live, and you're going to look for fuel disposal near me. You're going to hit that, and there are tons of different places. You've got for me, where I live, we've got the Roseland Convenience Center, which is just a garbage dump. They'll take it. Fellsmere Convenience Center, another garbage dump. Waste Management, Indian River County Recycle Convenience Center. Waste Management, Vero Beach Hauling. And you can call these places. They all have a phone number here, so you can call them and see if they take old water, fuel, dirty fuel, anything like that. But pretty much anywhere that you live, your garbage company, the Waste Management, or you might have an EMC disposal, or you might have, you know, some kind of company that will accept nasty fuel that they can then take and mess with, and it's good to go. I'm not sure how much it costs. Some places it's basically free, so it all depends on where you live, but that's how you're going to dispose of the fuel once you get it all out of your tank. Now that you've got all the water out of your fuel tank, you've got to figure out how the water's getting in there. Could be a whole slew of different things for us. I think I could potentially have a problem with this right here, which is the vent of the fuel tank that might be not working right. Take a look here. Huh. See if anything blows out. Flowing out of here pretty smoothly, so I don't think that's my issue. Didn't really have too much of a trouble there, so my vent's probably good, but maybe that fuel center that I put in or the pickup is leaking, so I'm going to need to investigate that a little bit more. And then on top of that, I need to reseal this console, so I'm going to do that, and then we will move on from there. But that's how you're going to get rid of water from your fuel tank and dispose of the dirty fuel.